welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Gregory Dole. We are here to preview the fight versus Jai Opetaia, seen by a lot of people as the number one cruiserweight in the world, against the undefeated Ellis Zorro. Greg, bit of a strange one, this. I don't think if you had said to me 6 months ago we were going to be sitting here previewing this fight, definitely wouldn't have believed you. So it's very strange, but here we are. We're here to preview it. As things stand, it's a bit unclear over whether this fight is going to be for Jai Opetaia's IBF world title. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But regardless of whether the title's on the line, the fight is going ahead. Give us your thoughts on this. Ellis Zorro, undefeated fighter, had a fantastic stoppage win against Jose Burton earlier this year. It's one of the best fights to happen on in Britain. I would argue. It's part of obviously a stacked bill on December 23rd in Saudi Arabia. Give us your thoughts on this one.
First of all, thanks, Elliot. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, like you say, it's not a fight we expected to be sitting here talking about. But I think the model of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh season, 23rd of December, I think it's one of those ones where maybe some promoters are being looked at and as if to say, who's your best light heavyweight? Who's your best cruiserweight? We'll give them a fight, but it needs to be against one of these guys. And it's rolling the dice. So this fight, it should really only go one way, but it's rolling the dice. It's an undefeated guy against another undefeated guy. So yeah, it's intriguing for a number of different reasons.
Yeah, and you could argue Ellis Zorro, look, arguably his best win is against Jose Burton, who's a British level fighter, and there's nothing wrong with being that level. And you could argue, look, maybe Ellis Zorro is going to go on to be a top 10 cruiserweight, a top 15 cruiserweight. He just hasn't been given the opportunity to show that yet. Is this a massive step up? Absolutely. Is Jai Opetaia a massive favourite? Absolutely. But I would argue that there is a bit of the unknown there. Because we don't know how good Ellis Zorro is. Do you view, if we're being honest, are you viewing this as a busy fight, as just a keep busy fight for Jai Opetaia? Obviously, he was last in action at the end of September against Sean Thompson, which ended in an early stoppage for himself. Back out again less than 3 months later. Do you see this as a keep busy fight, or do you see this as more of a serious fight for Jai Opetaia before he potentially moves on?
Elliot, I suppose it's a little bit of the unknown. Ellis Zorro hasn't so far looked to me like a guy who should be challenging Jai Opetaia. But with respect, Jai Opetaia's only two real notable fights is Marius Briedis and Jordan Thompson. So maybe some of us are I wouldn't say overrating Jai Opetaia, but let's be honest, the boy looks a bit special. I've never seen a cruiserweight who moves like I might get slaughtered for saying this, but like a Lomachenko lightweight. How quick his feet are, the way that he throws punches from awkward angles. I've never seen a cruiserweight that is like that. Probably since Evander Holyfield. So it's interesting for a number of reasons, but to answer your question, going on performance talent, it really probably should be a keep busy fight for Jai Opetaia.
Yeah, and we'll see. Like, I think the expectation is that this fight will then be a stoppage in the first half of the fight for Jai Opetaia. I think that's the expectation, but again, we'll see. We just look. It's a really intriguing. It is an intriguing one to an extent, because we've not seen Ellis Zorro get beaten up, lose, be in lots of trouble. The fight against Jose Burton was I imagine, was a close fight at the time of the stoppage, but he did win that fight in devastating fashion. Going back to Ellis Zorro, Greg, it's a tough question, but that's what I'm here for, here to ask the tough questions. I enjoy putting out kind of Twitter polls at the end of fight nights, asking Twitter people what level a fighter is at, whether it's British level, European level, world level. And I'm going to ask you that question about Ellis Zorro. I know it's a tricky one. He's beaten Jose Burton, who is seen as a British level fighter. He's currently the WBO European champion. But if I asked you that question, what would you come back to me with?
It's a really good question. I feel like I'm being harsh saying this, but I'd probably say maybe still British level. It would really depend on who the European champion is, Elliot. But just say, for example, up until he got another shot at the world title there, Matthias Masternak was probably European level. And I know who I'm picking if that fight get made tomorrow. So it's difficult to say. But what I would say, with respect to Ellis Zorro, is he is a British level fighter who definitely has potential, at least to go into European level.
Yeah, no, and we'll see. We'll see. We're not going to kind of talk too much more about what level Ellis Zorro is, because the answer is like it's a very difficult question, and we don't really know. Going back to Jai Opetaia, Greg, seen by most people as the best cruiserweight in the world right now. Let's be honest. Who do you want to see him face in 2024? There's the Chris Billam-Smith rematch. Not the rematch, sorry. There's the Marius Briedis rematch. There's fighting Chris Billam-Smith, who's obviously also a world champion. There are other names out there, but it's what fights appeal to you for Jai Opetaia in 2024?
It's a good question, Elliot. It's really anyone with a world title, because I don't know. I don't think he's big enough to go to heavyweight. I just don't. I don't think he's the tallest fighter. I think he's very talented, but Roy Jones could go to heavyweight and fight someone, and that's not a comparison, by the way. But Roy Jones could go to heavyweight and get a guy like John Ruiz. Jai Opetaia goes to heavyweight, he gets someone like a giant like Tyson Fury. And I don't think it's out of the question of winning that fight, by the way, and I'll go on record saying that now. Yeah, just anyone with the world title. I don't think that Sky will let Chris Billam-Smith anywhere near him. So I think it's got to be someone else that holds a world title. And that's with respect to Chris Billam-Smith as well. Very good fighter, but Jai Opetaia just looks a bit special to me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think cruiserweight division is one of those where there are tough fights about, but there are not a lot of big names. There are not a lot of names that are going to generate lots of money. A guy who I always see as a bit of a mystery is Arsene Goulamirian, the Frenchman, who has been very inactive, is the WBA champion, and you want to see more of him because he's clearly a very good fighter, but he just doesn't really fight that much. He last fought in November of last year, and I haven't heard about him fighting anytime soon. So we'll see. Look, you want to see these guys in the biggest fights possible. You want to see them have the chance to unify and possibly become undisputed. So we'll see. Jai Opetaia really should be in some big fights next year. He's a massive talent, and we shall see. Before we round things off, Greg, gonna do a prediction. I'll go first. I like Ellis Zorro, entertaining fighter, good fighter, and I do generally think he could go on to be a top 10, top 15 cruiserweight. We're obviously we do okay for cruiserweights in this country. We've got Chris Billam-Smith, Lawrence Okoli, Richard Riakporhe, Isaac Chamberlain. Ellis Zorro, with respect, is behind those guys, yet he's being given this opportunity, so fair play to him. But I just think there are levels here, and I think that Jai Opetaia will stop Ellis Zorro inside. I'm going to go inside 4 rounds, and I'll hand it over to you for your prediction as well.
I don't think I'm going to be as brave as you. The only reason being is because I think Jordan Thompson was the kind of the measuring stick as how not to fight Jai Opetaia. So it's not out of the question that Ellis Zorro could go on the back foot, look for opportunities, cover up tight. But if we're being honest, I would be surprised to see this one go beyond 6 or 7 rounds. And I think Opetaia will win absolutely everything up until he stops Zorro. So, yeah, not as adventurous as you, although there's a good chance you'll be right. But I'd be surprised if we go out the first half of the fight.
Yeah, we shall see. Looking forward to it. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens in this fight, along with the other fights that are happening this Saturday in Saudi Arabia. Greg, good to speak about this one with you, and we'll see what happens. Jai Opetaia against Ellis Zorro. Greg, thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.